I'm sorry, but your fate ends here. The final words of that man struck my ears, colder than a winter wind sweeping down from the Appalachian Mountains. As I watched the receding red taillights of his car, I bit my lip, but the truth was, I had to bite my lip to keep a triumphant laugh from escaping. He had no idea. Not even in his wildest dreams would he imagine that the tears welling in my eyes were not from fear, but from the pure bliss of this moment I had waited for so long. As the dust settled, I tightened my grip on my wheelchair, and, with a surge of pride, I used the strength of my own two legs and suddenly stood up. "My dear, you forgot one thing," I whispered to the empty road. "My fate is just beginning. Before this story truly begins, don't forget to subscribe and like the video. And join me until the very end." A deep silence enveloped the mountainside. The black sedan driven by that man was no longer visible, not even a shadow. I took a slow, deep breath. For the first time in 6 months, I was standing on my own 2 feet without worrying about what anyone would say. I never imagined how wonderful the rough gravel would feel against the soles of my feet. Grr. I gritted my teeth without realizing it. His disgusting performance from moments ago was still vivid in my mind. "Eleanor, my love, just rest here, where the air is fresh. I'll be back for you soon." A monumental lie. On the way to this desolate mountain, he hummed incessantly, glancing at me in the rearview mirror. But he couldn't hide the smile that stretched from ear to ear. He had probably already called his mistress, telling her to get the good brandy ready. In his mind, he had finally rid his life of a burden. His old, sick wife, confined to a wheelchair, unable to care for herself. I used the toe of my worn-out shoe to crush a cigarette butt on the ground, the one he had carelessly tossed aside after leaving me. The reward for a lifetime of service and sacrifice for a husband, it seemed, was a cigarette butt and abandonment on a mountain. Others might think it a waste of 30 years, but strangely, I felt no sadness. Instead, a blazing fire rose from the depths of my heart. "Yes, Robert, this is what you always wanted, isn't it? To live a life of luxury with your woman after selling off all our land and properties without my consent." I pulled the smartphone I had long kept hidden from my pocket. My hands trembled, but not from the cold. On the screen, the red word recording flashed brightly. Time, 3 hours, 42 minutes, and 15 seconds since we left the house. Every part of his conversation with his mistress on the phone, the hurtful words he spat at me when he left, right up to the sound of his car speeding away, it was all recorded. Nothing more, nothing less. "Just die, Eleanor Vance. My life will only get better when you're dead." I could still hear that voice, the words he had whispered to me earlier. I pressed the stop recording button and immediately called speed dial number 1. Before it could even ring, the call was answered. "Hello, ma'am. Are you all right?" It was the voice of Attorney Carter, full of concern. "Attorney." My voice was surprisingly calm. "Yes, ma'am. We're tracking your location now. We're on our way with the police." "Has your husband left?" "He just left. He was practically giddy as he drove off," I said, laughing softly as I stared into the empty road. "I have the evidence of his abandonment. Attempted murder, abandonment, and fraud. Are we certain we can take every last penny he has because of this?" "Absolutely, ma'am. With this recording and your current situation, he won't escape a long prison sentence. We'll be at your house before he even gets there." "How are you feeling?" "Like I could fly. I feel so light. I've spent 6 months pretending to be a cripple. I nearly died of boredom." I stretched my back, which had been stiff for so long. Crack! The sound of my bones echoed through the forest. "The truth is, it was 6 months ago when the doctor told me it was a miracle. Your nerves are regenerating." I thought I would immediately tell my husband. I believed he would be the happiest person for me. But that night, the conversation I overheard outside my hospital room door sealed my lips. "What?" "The doctor said there's no hope for her. We can't sell the properties until she's dead. Maybe it would be better to just leave her on some mountain and report her as missing." In that moment, he surely didn't hear the sound of my heart shattering. That night, I buried my face in my pillow and cried tears of blood while making a promise to myself. I will stand on my own 2 feet again, and you, Robert, will kneel before me. The past 6 months have been a living hell. I had to remain immobile, eat the food he brought, and endure the taunts of his mistress who claimed I smelled foul. I had to bite my own thigh to keep from reacting. I wanted to stand up and tear her hair out. But I had to wait for the perfect evidence. Wait until they became complacent and fell into my trap. And now, finally, He himself has opened the gates of hell for himself. Ma'am, we'll be there in 5 minutes. Just wait. Don't you worry. He'll be opening a bottle of brandy when he gets home. So we have plenty of time. After the call, I kicked the wheelchair. Clatter. It tumbled down the side of the mountain. The side of the crumpled metal seemed to mirror the future of Robert Hayes. The air was cold, but I didn't feel it. Instead, a sense of relief washed over me. I took a lipstick from my pocket and applied it. He had forbidden me from wearing makeup, saying it made me look desperate. My face in the small mirror was pale, but my eyes were shining, just like when I was a young woman, just starting my small diner. Just you wait, Robert. The life I've prepared for you, I will destroy with my own hands. In the distance, the wail of a police siren began to grow. Strangely, that sound reminded me of the day, 3 years ago, the car accident that changed my entire life. That night, the same sound echoed in my ears as I lay bloody and pinned inside the mangled car. As I was losing consciousness, the last thing I saw was the weeping face of my husband, Robert, screaming my name. Eleanor, no. Don't die, my love, wake up. In those moments, his tears seemed real. Or rather, I chose to believe they were. Even when I was told half my body was paralyzed and I lost all hope, he held my hand and said, I will be your legs for the rest of your life. Don't you worry. The people around us admired him, calling him a saint, a rare kind of man. Because of that, I cried every night under the covers, feeling like an immense burden. Foolish. What a fool I was. I never imagined what kind of betrayal would be the price for all those tears and that trust. Exactly 6 months ago, on a rainy night while I was confined to a rehabilitation hospital, I was jolted awake by a loud clap of thunder and felt a strange tingling at the tips of my toes. My right big toe, which for 3 years had felt like dead wood, devoid of sensation. Hoping it was real, I tried to move it. It moved. It definitely moved. My heart pounded as if it would burst. A miracle had happened. The nerves the doctors had given up on had come back to life. Overjoyed, I was about to scream when I covered my mouth. I wanted to surprise my husband, who was supposed to be sleeping in the adjacent cot. I wanted to tell him, your suffering is over, my love. I can walk again. He was the first person I wanted to share the good news with. But there was no one in the visitor's cot. Without a second thought, I slid from the bed to the floor, crawling on the cold hospital tiles, and slowly pushed the door open. From the end of the hallway, near the waiting area, a light was on, and I heard my husband's voice. Oh, babe, it's me. A voice I didn't recognize. A voice dripping with a sweetness he never used with me. Lying flat on the cold floor, I held my breath and listened. Ah, my wife? Don't worry. The doctor said she's crippled for life. She'll just stay in the hospital until she dies. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. I wanted to think I misheard, but his next words were like daggers stabbing my heart. About transferring the property titles. As soon as I find that damn original deed, I'll transfer it. The witch hid it so well, it's hard to find. What? Does she stink? Yeah. I get disgusted every time I have to clean her filth. It makes me want to vomit. I'm just enduring it for the value of that land. Thunder. It boomed outside, but the thunder inside my head was louder. I bit my lip until it bled and pressed my face against the cold floor, my whole body trembling. I hated the feeling that had returned to my legs. If only I hadn't found out. If only I had died believing in my husband. Would it have been easier? No. That night, I saw hell in the corridor of a hospital. The angel I believed in was a demon in disguise, lusting after my wealth. From then on, I began my own performance. I had the feeling returning to my legs and pretended to be an invalid. Whenever he massaged my legs, my skin would crawl, but I'd feign numbness, staring blankly at the ceiling. When we got home, he brought his mistress into our house, into our bedroom. While I sat in my wheelchair in the living room, I pretended not to hear, not to see, drooling like a fool. Just a little longer. Eleanor, if you act now, you'll lose everything. I had to endure until I had enough irrefutable evidence. And now, finally, that endurance had paid off. Ma'am, you're here. Attorney Carter, getting out of the patrol car, rushed towards me. The investigators following him surrounded me, and medics approached with a stretcher. Are you okay? Does anything hurt? At the investigator's question, I slowly lifted my head. In a clear voice, I said, nothing hurts. In fact, I feel lighter. Attorney Carter took my hand and whispered, I've heard the recording. It's perfect. We're heading to your house now to serve the arrest warrant. Thank you, attorney. I politely declined the medic's help and, on my own 2 feet, got into the back of the police car. The officers were stunned, but this wasn't the time for explanations. The car door closed, and I felt the warm air from the heater. The dark mountain landscape outside the window slowly receded. In that darkness, I was leaving behind the old Eleanor Vance who had lived like a fool for 30 years. Where I was going now was not as a loving wife. I was the goddess of vengeance, returned from hell. Let's go. Let's surprise my dear husband. The police car descended the mountain, its siren wailing. That siren, which 3 years ago was meant to save me, now sounded like a death march for him. Just wait, my love. The hell you gave me, I will return to you with interest. As the police car entered the city, the colorful neon lights streamed through the window. People were busy with their lives, the streets teeming with energy. Just a few hours ago, I thought I would never be a part of that ordinary scene again. My fate was supposed to be to become food for wild animals in the forest. I looked at my reflection in the window. Rough skin, deep wrinkles. But my eyes were shining with a cold light, more than ever before. The short drive home felt longer than the 6 months of hell. My memory suddenly flashed back to an afternoon 3 months ago. That day, my husband had brought Sharon, that woman, to our house again, and even left our bedroom door open where I was lying. To be precise, only the lower part of my body was paralyzed. My upper body was fine. At first, I would scream and throw things. But every time I did that, my husband would choke me and threaten me. If you keep throwing fits, you won't end up in a nursing home, but in a mental institution in the middle of nowhere. Once you're there, you'll die without anyone ever knowing. Knowing he wasn't joking, I changed my strategy. I pretended that not only my legs were affected, but my mind as well, due to the accident. That way, they would become complacent and show their true colors. Sharon entered the room, pinching her nose. She was carrying a bowl of my leftover cold oatmeal. She looked at me sitting there, drooling. Of course, it was all an act. She looked at me like I was an insect. Babe, it looks like this woman has completely lost her mind. Her eyes are lifeless. My husband, lying on the sofa watching TV, laughed. Yeah, the doctor said her brain was damaged too. She can't move anymore. She's just a breathing corpse. At his words, a malicious smile formed on Sharon's lips. She suddenly dropped the bowl of oatmeal onto my hand. It wasn't an accident. It was a clear provocation to see if I was truly a mindless invalid. Ouch. It's hot. She let out a fake yelp, but it was me who was in pain. Even though it was cold oatmeal, the weight of the bowl felt like searing iron. The soupy mess ran down my hand and into the sleeve of my dress. I wanted to stand up, grab her, and slap her. My arms were strong, but I bit the inside of my cheek until it bled and remained perfectly still. My eyes didn't even blink, just stared into the void. If I move now, it's all over. If they find out I still have strength, they'll immediately commit me to a mental hospital and take all my assets. Oh, babe, look. Even with hot stuff spilled on her, she didn't even flinch. Her brain really must be fried. Sharon poked my cheek. My husband came over and casually wiped the oatmeal off my hand with a tissue. See? I told you. She's like a vegetable now. We can talk freely. She won't understand a thing we say. In that case, should we sign the papers to transfer the land titles now? That one sentence, spoken because of their mistake, brought me a secret joy under my blanket. Finally, they had taken the bait. Because they thought I was a fool, they themselves revealed their evil plan. The only thing that kept me sane through all the humiliation was the time that was just for me, which came every night. At 2 a.m., when my husband's snores became regular, I would stop acting and slowly open my eyes. My vision would sharpen, and like a caterpillar, I would crawl out of bed. You have to get up, Eleanor. You can stand. Sweat poured down my face like rain. It took me 3 minutes just to stand up, using the wall for support. Whenever my legs trembled and my knees gave out, I would remember Sharon's face as she poured the oatmeal on me. One step, then another. In the darkness, I walked through the living room like a newborn animal. I couldn't make a single sound for fear of waking my husband. My training wasn't just walking. I also had to find the documents he had hidden in a drawer, photograph them, and return them to their original place. Every night, I moved like a spy. One night, while walking in the living room, I accidentally bumped a chair. It was a small noise, but in the silence of the night, It sounded like thunder. Our bedroom door opened. What was that? My husband's sleepy voice called out. I immediately dropped to the floor and pretended to be asleep, drooling. My heart felt like it would leap out of my chest. What's this? Did this woman fall out of bed? Annoying. He nudged me with his foot, then lifted me up and practically threw me back onto the bed before going back to his room. The humiliation of being treated like a rag. But inside, I was laughing. Go on. Get more complacent. The more you underestimate me, the sharper my weapon becomes. For 6 months, I lived as a vegetable by day and a goddess of vengeance by night. And now, finally, I would see the fruits of my endurance. Ma'am, we're here. Attorney Carter's voice brought me back to the present. The patrol car was already inside our gated community. Do you see that house with the lights on? Unit 1205. The investigator pointed to our home. The light in our bedroom was on, bright. Through the veranda window, 2 shadows moved. Are you ready? The investigator asked as he opened the car door. I took a deep breath and stepped out of the car with pride. Yes, I've been ready for a long time. Knock, knock. My feet stood firmly on the asphalt. The elevator number descended towards the ground floor. My reflection in the mirrored wall looked new to me, but I was happy to see it. The drooling, wheelchair-bound Eleanor was gone. In her place stood the judge, Eleanor Vance, with her back straight. Let's go. My finger firmly pressed the button for the 12th floor. Just wait, Robert Hayes. Sharon. The true owner has returned. The sound of the digital door lock being disengaged shattered the silence of the hallway. For the 2 people inside, this sound would signal their end. I held my breath and slowly turned the doorknob. Click. As the door opened, a familiar yet nauseating smell greeted me. The sweet scent of brandy and greasy takeout food. In the entryway, a pair of women's shoes was placed where my slippers used to be. Red high heels. The very shoes Sharon wore the day she poured hot oatmeal on my hand 3 months ago. From the living room, I could hear loud laughter. Babe, cheers? Ah, it feels so good to have that dead weight gone. The house looks so much more spacious. Ha ha ha. I know, right? We should have done this sooner. Poor me, I can only relax now. But what if that witch freezes to death on the mountain? Even better if she dies. We'll report her missing, and after 5 years, she'll be declared legally dead. You'll even get her insurance money. Jackpot. My Sharon is so smart. Yeah, just die. Just die. Eleanor Vance. The distinct clinking of glasses echoed. As they made my death the topic of their celebration, I grew calmer. I could feel the blood rushing to my head, but a bitter smile played on my lips. I stopped the police and Attorney Carter from entering. Not yet. I need to end their party with my own hands. I looked at my old shoes in the entryway and remembered that night, 3 months ago, when my husband was going crazy looking for my original property deed. It was a moonlit night. He was sure I was asleep, so he shamelessly rummaged through the closet in our room. Where did she hide it? I'm sure it's in this closet. He threw clothes on the floor in frustration. I was covered up to my head with a blanket, watching him through a small slit. I held my smartphone tightly under the pillow, the video recording on. After searching the entire closet and finding nothing, he approached the bed where I lay. I suddenly got nervous. Was he going to search me? I pretended to snore, feigning deep sleep. I felt his breath on my face. He put his hand under my pillow. Oh, no, I thought. He's about to find my smartphone. But as if blessed by heaven, he didn't touch the phone and just felt under the covers. Ah, the stench. She never even bathes. Smells rotten. Covering his nose, he gave up and went back to the living room. He sat on the sofa. Damn it. And I boasted to Sharon I'd bring the deed tomorrow. In his anger, he was about to throw the sofa pillow but stopped. Instead, he used it to sit on and turned on the TV. Under the blanket, I had to bite my thigh to stop from laughing. You idiot. The pillow you're sitting on right now, I sewed the deed inside it. You moron. The saying is true. Sometimes what you're looking for is right under your nose. He couldn't find the land deed worth millions that was right under his own butt. The next day, when Sharon came and asked, "Did you find it?" my husband's answer was brilliant. No. It seems even though that witch is losing her mind, she still managed to hide it well. I've looked everywhere. Nothing. Maybe you just didn't look hard enough. Move aside. I'll look. Even Sharon helped in the search, but they never even glanced at the old, dirty pillow on the sofa. The pillow, They always kicked aside with their feet because it was so old. I sat in my wheelchair, pretending to drool while celebrating internally. Go on, search. You could search for a lifetime, and you wouldn't find it. Your own greed has blinded you. In the video I recorded that day, his voice and face were clearly captured as he said, "Once I find this, I'll transfer the name immediately, and then I'll divorce her." This was solid evidence of his attempted theft. The memory was brief. I returned to the present. In the living room, their laughter continued. "Babe, are you sure it's okay? What if the police investigate?" "Don't worry. I've already created an alibi. I only drove on roads with no CCTV, and I turned off my phone." A perfect crime. A perfect crime. I laughed softly. He didn't know that the only hole in his perfect plan was about to walk in. I intentionally made my heels click loudly as I walked into the living room. Click, clack, click, clack. At the sound of my footsteps, the laughter abruptly stopped. "Who's that?" My husband's voice trembled. Even though he didn't hear the door lock, he heard the sound of heels inside the house. Instead of answering, I flicked on the living room light. Click! Light flooded the room. On the sofa, Robert and Sharon were in an embrace. On the table, a bottle of brandy and chicken bones were scattered about. Their eyes locked onto me simultaneously. Silence. A deafening second of silence passed. My husband's eyes widened. His mouth hung open, unable to speak. Sharon dropped the glass of brandy she was holding. Ting! The sound of shattering glass was like a scream. A ghost. My husband trembled with fear. And why wouldn't he? His crippled wife with dementia, whom he had left on a mountain just 3 hours ago, was now standing before him with piercing eyes. Slowly, I approached them. With each step I took, he recoiled behind the sofa and screamed, "Don't come near me. Go away, ghost. Help." I smirked and pulled a chair to sit down. I picked up a piece of leftover chicken. "A ghost, huh? So you think I'm a ghost?" Hearing my voice, Sharon shrieked. "Ah! She's talking. Babe, what's happening? You said she was a corpse and couldn't talk anymore." I slammed the chicken down on the table and faced them. "Why? Were you expecting me to come back dead? Sorry to disappoint you. But I came back from the gates of hell to take you with me. Eleanor. Your legs." My husband pointed a trembling finger at my feet. "My legs? Oh, these?" I crossed my legs and wiggled my foot. "Surprising, isn't it? I've been healed for 6 months. You were probably just too busy with your mistress to notice." "What? 6 months?" "Yes. Didn't you notice I was flushing the sleeping pills you mixed into my food down the toilet? Do you know how much I laughed while you were tearing the house apart looking for the deed?" I stood up and grabbed the old, dirty pillow from the sofa. In front of their eyes, I unzipped it. From inside the cotton stuffing, the original notarized deed, folded neatly, fell out. "Is this what you were looking for, my love?" My husband's face turned ashen. Sharon trembled and hid behind him. You knew everything. You were pretending?" "Who was pretending?" "The nerve of you," I yelled. The force of my voice made my husband collapse. "While you were busy pretending to care for me to get my money, I was busy collecting evidence. While you treated me like trash and left me on a mountain, I endured it all because I knew I could put you in jail." I took out my phone and pressed play. "Just die, Eleanor Vance. My life will only get better when you're dead." His voice from inside the car echoed throughout the living room. My husband crawled on the floor to grab my feet. "My love, forgive me. I wasn't in my right mind. Forgive me, please. We're married. I can explain everything." "Married? Explain?" I kicked his hand away. I bent down and looked him straight in the eye. "It's not me you should be explaining to. It's them." I pointed towards the entryway. On that cue, the police officers entered. "Robert Hayes. Sharon Miller, you are under arrest for attempted murder, abandonment, and attempted fraud." As the police brought out the handcuffs, Sharon started to panic. "It wasn't me. He made me do it. I didn't know anything. I'm a victim too." "Shut up, you witch. You're the one who seduced me." Their blaming each other was pathetic. I walked over to Sharon. She looked at me with fear. "Ma'am, please." Slap. My palm connected forcefully with her cheek. The sting in my hand seemed to erase all the resentment I had held for 6 months. "That's for pouring hot oatmeal on me." I turned to my stunned husband. Slap. This time, I used my other hand. "And that is for the 30 years of my life you threw in the trash." I looked at their reddened faces and said coldly, This is just the beginning. I will make sure you both rot in prison for the rest of your lives. My money, my land, my buildings. Don't even dream of it. The only thing I'll be giving you is prison slop." As the police car drove away, I could see the back of my handcuffed husband. From inside, he was still glaring at me. But in his eyes, fear outweighed the anger. I turned my gaze outside. It was early morning, and the city lights were passing by the window. Attorney Carter asked gently, "Ma'am, you must be exhausted. You can rest first and come to the station tomorrow." "It's all right. I'll go now. I've waited 6 months. What's a few more hours?" To be honest, I've never felt more awake. Instead of being tired, every cell in my body seemed to be dancing. I remember the day, 2 weeks ago, when he set the day. That day, I was sitting in my wheelchair in the living room again, pretending to be catatonic. My husband was on the veranda, talking to Sharon on the phone. Even though his voice was low, I heard every whisper clearly. "Yes, next Saturday. They're forecasting rain, so it's perfect." My heart suddenly pounded. Finally, a date. I'll just leave her on a remote mountain. We'll take roads with no CCTV. Turn off your phone. Don't worry. The plan is perfect. He walked back into the living room, laughing, and knelt before me. "My love, next Saturday, let's go for a drive somewhere with fresh air. Okay?" His smile was so vile, it sent shivers down my spine. He must have practiced that mask for 3 years. I nodded like a fool who understood nothing. "There. Such a good girl. It must be boring, not being able to speak, right?" His stroking of my head was chilling. It wasn't affection. It was the touch one gives to something they're about to throw away. The moment he left, I immediately stood up from the wheelchair and grabbed my phone. I searched for lawyer in my contacts. As I dialed the number, my hands trembled and tears welled in my eyes. After 2 rings, he answered. "Hello, this is Attorney Daniel Carter." "Attorney, it's Eleanor Vance." "Ah, Mrs. Vance, I've been waiting for your call. Is there a date?" "Next Saturday." I heard him swallow on the other end of the line. "Okay, I'll call the police right away." "Ma'am, the GPS tracker. I put it in your mailbox yesterday. Please make sure you have it with you at all times, as well as the recorder." "I know. I also have 2 backup recording apps on my phone." "Excellent, ma'am. Are you sure you can do this? Going to the mountains is dangerous." "I can do it. This is the last step. The moment he leaves me, the evidence will be complete." "Yes. We will ensure your safety. On Saturday, we will be tracking your location and will respond immediately." After the call, my knees felt weak. I sat on the sofa and cried for a long time. I would be lying if I said I wasn't scared. The fear that he might actually kill me was overwhelming, but I couldn't give up. I wouldn't let my 30 years of hard work go to their greed. I wiped my tears and went downstairs to get the GPS tracker. A small device, the size of a coin. This little thing would be my lifeline. Meeting attorney Daniel Carter was no coincidence. 20 years ago, when I had my small diner, a 20-year-old law student approached me and asked to wash dishes because he couldn't afford a meal. I fed him well and even packed him food to go. "Ma'am, when I become a lawyer, I will repay your kindness," he'd said. 5 years ago, he returned, wearing a sharp suit. "I was that student," he said, handing me his business card. I cried with joy. And 3 months ago, in the darkest moment of my life, I called him. "Attorney, I'm in danger. Please help me." He waited for me late at night at a coffee shop near our house. I crawled out of the house while my husband slept soundly. Instead of the elevator, I crawled down the fire escape to meet him. "Ma'am." He was shocked at my appearance. I must have looked pathetic, drenched in sweat and crawling. "Attorney, my husband wants to kill me." I showed him all the evidence I had collected. Recordings, videos, text messages, and papers from his attempt to transfer assets. He looked at everything and nodded. "This is sufficient. But the most crucial piece of evidence is the act of abandonment itself." "I know. That's why I have to experience it myself." "That's too dangerous." "It's okay. I'm staking my life on this." That night, we formulated a detailed plan. GPS tracking, recording, an emergency response system with the police and the lawyer's presence. And now, that plan had been successfully executed. "Ma'am, we're here." The lawyer's voice brought me back. We were in front of the police station. Inside the interrogation room, a female officer handed me a warm cup of coffee. "You've been through a lot, ma'am. We just need to take a brief statement. Since the recordings and videos are clear, The case will be filed immediately and a warrant will be requested. Thank you. While writing my statement, I could hear Robert and Sharon arguing and blaming each other from the next room. This is your fault. You're the one who seduced me. Don't blame me. You were the one obsessed with the money. The officer closed the door. I smiled bitterly and shook my head. It's okay. Even if I hear it, it doesn't hurt anymore. It was 5 a.m. when everything was finished. The investigator said that within a week there would be an arraignment, and the first trial would begin soon after. Because the evidence is so strong, the verdict will be swift. So we would meet again in court. Yes. We will also need your testimony as the victim. Court. The thought of seeing the man I was married to for 30 years in court gave my chest a heavy feeling. But at the same time, I realized this wasn't the end, but a new beginning. Leaving the station, the sun was rising, a red dawn. Attorney Carter approached me. Ma'am, I'll drive you home. No, thank you. I'd like to walk alone. Are you sure? Yes. It's been a long time since I've walked home to my own house on my own 2 feet. Attorney Carter bowed deeply. Ma'am, it has been an honor to repay my debt to you for a plate of food 20 years ago. What are you saying, attorney? You're the one who saved me. We shook hands. His hand was warm. On the way home, the cool morning air touched my cheeks. People were starting to head to work, one step, and then another. I realized how precious the simple act of walking on my own 2 feet was. When I arrived home, the silence of the living room felt new. The mess from the previous night was still there. Broken glass, spilled brandy. I quietly began to clean. I took out the trash, wiped the floor, and opened the windows. The foul air went out, replaced by the fresh morning breeze. I sat on the sofa and looked outside. The sun was rising. Like that sun, my life was rising again. My phone rang. It was Attorney Carter. Ma'am, the first hearing has been scheduled. 2 weeks from today, Friday at 10 a.m. Okay, I'll see you then. Please get some rest. After hanging up, I circled the date on the calendar. Court, that's where it would all finally end. 30 years of marriage, 6 months of endurance, and 1 day of revenge. All that was left was the verdict. The red circle on the calendar was seared into my mind. 2 weeks from now, Friday, 10 a.m. When I circled it, I thought it was the end. I had seen my husband taken away in handcuffs, so I thought I could finally breathe. But strangely, since that night, my sleep had been shallow. The sound of a car outside would make me anxious, and I'd imagine hearing the door lock click, even when it didn't. Not out of fear, but a feeling that something was still unfinished. The next morning, while wiping a brandy stain off the floor, the phone rang. An unknown number. Hello? The voice on the other end was formal. May I confirm if this is Mrs. Eleanor Vance? We need confirmation. I felt a knot in my stomach. I slowly replied, We're calling from the bank regarding a mortgage under your name. There's an extension due today. In that moment, I dropped the cleaning rag. A mortgage? I didn't remember any such thing. The employee said, Your husband arranged it as your representative. We have a spousal consent form on file. My chest tightened. Spousal consent. Of course, Robert. That was you. If you could leave a person on a mountain, what's using a piece of paper to ruin my life? I immediately called Attorney Carter. Attorney, the bank called. They say I have a loan with my property as collateral. Ma'am, come to my office right away. Did you get the name of the bank and the person you spoke with? On the way to the lawyer's office, the air felt colder. I walked in to find papers spread across his desk. A list of my assets, everything I had worked for since my days selling food at the market. Land, buildings, rental income. All of it was now tied to a debt my husband had created. Attorney Carter said, Ma'am, we need to act on the civil case, separate from the criminal one. We'll file a freeze order with the bank and halt any transactions. Staring at the papers, I remembered his words from 20 years ago. My love, I'm counting on you. I'll work for us. Why did I believe him? 30 years of willful blindness had resulted in this single piece of paper. That afternoon, we went to the bank. The manager was visibly nervous. Perhaps the news had already spread. Attorney Carter stated, Her husband is incarcerated. We need to review all transactions he made as her representative. And from this moment on, we demand a halt to all further actions on this mortgage. The manager said, Mrs. Vance, we have several documents with your signature on them. I smiled bitterly. Of course. While I was pretending to be out of my mind, He had taken my hand and made me sign. Anger rose in my throat, but it was overshadowed by the fear that even if I won, I would have nothing left. Attorney Carter held my hand. "Ma'am, don't lose heart. We will do everything we can." Back at his office, he prepared the documents: a petition for garnishment, an injunction to prevent the sale of the properties, and an official request to the bank. That night, another call came. It was Robert. "Eleanor." "It's me?" His voice was weak. "I made a mistake. Forgive me." The word forgive felt so cheap. "Let's just settle. It's hard for you too, with what people are saying. I'll sort out the money." Sort out my money. My life. That's when I realized. He felt no remorse, only the fear of losing money. "We'll settle in court, in front of the judge." His tone changed abruptly. "If you push this, we'll both lose. I'm in a lot of debt. Then we'll let the law handle it. Your debt is your problem." That night, I received a text from Attorney Carter. "Ma'am, the freeze order has been approved. Starting tomorrow, your husband's accounts will be untouchable." I looked outside. The streetlights cast a glow. I wish my life could be that clear. I looked at the circle on the calendar again. Court was no longer the end. It was the beginning of reclaiming my name. And this time, I would walk in there on my own 2 feet. Standing in front of the courthouse, I finally understood that this was a beginning, not an end. The morning air was crisp. In my hand, I clutched a thick envelope of documents. "Ma'am, are you okay?" Attorney Carter asked. I nodded. The hallway was full of people, but it was quiet. I saw the sign on the door: Regional Trial Court, Branch 2. In that moment, 30 years flashed before my eyes. "I'm sorry, but your fate ends here." When the door opened, the air inside was cold. I sat in the front row. Robert was in the defendant's chair, avoiding my gaze. Sharon was there too, pale under a thick layer of makeup. When the judge entered, I told myself, yes, I stood up on the mountain, in my house, and now here. The prosecutor read the charges: attempted murder, abandonment, fraud, and falsification of documents. When Robert's lawyer said they were open to a settlement, I looked at Robert. His lips moved silently. "Eleanor, please." The judge asked if I was agreeable. I slowly stood up. "Your Honor, that man left me on a mountain to die. If such a crime can be settled with money, then what is the point of justice?" The courtroom fell silent. The prosecutor played the recording. "Just die, Eleanor Vance. My life will only get better when you're dead." Robert's face went white. The prosecutor presented all the evidence. I opened my envelope and said, "He didn't just leave me. While I was pretending to be incapacitated, he mortgaged my properties. That's why he left me on the mountain." Suddenly, Sharon stood up and screamed. "He made me do it. He said I just had to sign it, and it would be over." Her admission sealed their fate. "Shut up," Robert yelled. The judge banged his gavel. "Order in the court." He ordered them to remain in custody. A weight lifted off my shoulders. Leaving the courtroom, I still couldn't believe it. "Attorney, why do I feel so empty, even though I won?" "Ma'am, you didn't win today. You cut a cord you've been carrying for 30 years. It's normal to feel a sense of loss." The word cord stuck with me. When I got home, I opened all the windows. The house no longer felt like mine. I looked at the wall where our wedding picture used to hang. Now, it was just a blank space. The next day, I began to organize. Papers, bank accounts, passwords. I erased every trace of Robert. Attorney Carter called. "Ma'am, good news. We've managed to stop the mortgage proceedings. It's clear he acted far beyond his rights." At his words, I didn't laugh. I cried. Not for the money, but for the return of my own name. Robert called again from jail. "Eleanor, are you really going through with this?" "I'm not going through with it. I'm just putting things back the way they were." "Can you visit me?" "No, just once." Robert Hayes. For the first time, I called him by his full name. "Do you remember what you said to me? Your fate ends here. I'm returning those words to you. Your fate of being a part of my life ends here." After I hung up, my hands were shaking, but I didn't fall apart. A few days later, a letter arrived from the prison. I didn't need to open it. I knew what it contained. "Forgive me. Help me." I took the letter to the kitchen. I put a kettle on the stove and waited for it to boil. As it whistled, I thought, is my revenge complete? Or do I need to burn away the last bit of pity in my heart? 30 years is a long time, I whispered, and I tore the letter into tiny pieces. That night, I took out an old photo album. I found a picture of myself as a young woman, smiling in front of my little diner. I took it out and put it in a frame. Not a picture of us, but a picture of me, alone and happy. I found a small space for a new diner. Eleanor's Eats. When I saw my name on the signboard, I felt a lump in my throat. For 30 years, I was someone's wife. Now, I was Eleanor Vance. When the first customer came in, I served him a bowl of hot soup. It's hot. Please eat slowly. Those words were for him, and also for myself. Coming home, the silence of the house was no longer frightening. It was the peace I had fought for. I looked outside at a tree, bare of leaves, but still standing strong against the wind. I thought, I can be like that tree. Even if I lose everything, I can remain standing. And in the end, I asked myself, what would you do? If the person you spent 30 years with celebrated your death, would you still endure in the name of family? Instead of answering, I held my legs tightly. My life was no longer a ride in someone else's car. The direction I am heading, that is my fate. And here, our story ends. Thank you for staying until the very end. What are your thoughts after hearing this story? Please comment below to let me know your opinions. Thank you, and have a wonderful day.